coming to you live from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. Now, this is starting to become my favorite time of the sports year because we're going into an NFL season, and what comes with that is a lot of predictions. A lot of predictions on who's going to go the furthest in the Super Bowl, individual awards, all that stuff. So we're going to have next week a predictions week on the show. So that's going to be a playoff bracket. That's going to be award predictions, Super Bowl predictions, all of that blowout stuff. We're also going to have, because if you didn't know this about me, I'm a bit of a sports gambler. So we're going to have a betting show before the season starts on teams over under wins. We're also going to have a betting show each and every week on Friday before the games start on 5 picks a week that I'm going to make myself that you guys can follow along through the season. And we're going to track and see how I do. So far, I've done pretty well in my sports betting, so I'm not saying to always follow my advice, but I think I'm definitely a good baseline that you can go off of. So I'm excited for that. Predictions week coming up next week. So this is going to be my last show for a little while, for a couple weeks. That's just a straight take of mine. And this is a take that I've kind of had brewing for a while, but I've never really known how to articulate it in the best way. But I think I figured it out today. So what started this brain thought of mine is I was reading Sports Illustrated this morning, as I usually do, and I was looking through trying to see what stories would get my brain turning, something I wanted to talk about, and I saw this one, which had a headline, "Former GM would be shocked if Russell Wilson made it through the season without being benched." He went on to explain that it's all about Sean Payton trying to reset the culture and letting the team know by example that everyone is expendable and nothing is guaranteed, all that Patriot way stuff. And I get that. I get it. I don't think it's something Payton would do, but I get it. He seems to think Russ is good to go. Every quote that I hear from him has just been unconditional praise of the man. Praise about his leadership, his improvement, his reinvigorated confidence, all that. But I have a different take on Russell Wilson and the Broncos this year than Payton does, or I think anyone else does for that matter. So when you look at the top quarterbacks in the league, I'm talking the top 7, 8 guys who could realistically take a team to a Super Bowl. If the team is right around him, obviously, it's a team sport, the ultimate team sport. So the Mahomeses, the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons, those kind of guys, you know what they all have in common? They all have one trait that makes them different than anybody else. One big thing that separates them from the pack of mid-tier to bottom-tier quarterbacks that the majority of the league is. For Josh Allen, it's his physical traits. You know, the guy is 6'6", 240, and moves like a man half that size. Biggest arm in the league, can make plays outside of the pocket. Overall, just his physical attributes are his differentiator. For Burrow, it's his accuracy. He is the highest completion percentage ever for someone who's thrown over 500 passes. His ball placement is just second to none. For Lamar Jackson, it's obviously the fact that he might be the best runner in the league, and he happens to play quarterback. For Jalen Hurts, it's his incredible work ethic and intangibles, leadership intangible, all that stuff. I could go on and on. Every quarterback has something like that. And Russell Wilson used to be one of those elite guys. There were points in his career from about 2017, 2018 to about 2020, 2021, where he was undisputedly a top 5 quarterback in the world. His Seahawks were always in the playoffs and always making pretty deep playoff runs. So what changed? In my opinion, it's pretty simple. The trait that separated Russ from the pack of QBs was his elusiveness and his ability to make plays off script. So, as I mentioned at the start of every show, I live in Vancouver, and obviously we don't have a pro football team. So we just kind of adopted the Seahawks as our NFL team. I didn't personally, but the city around me did. They're always on local TV because it's about 3 hours away from where I live, very close. And it always seemed like when I watched Russ play, which was a lot, that on a big third down or a last minute drive in a tight game, it wasn't Russ's quick decisions from the pocket that won Seattle those games. It was when he would break contain, escape the pocket, give his receivers a few extra seconds to get open so he could take a shot down the field or just get a first down to a tight end, dump off to a back, something like that. He was also great at getting first downs himself. He had that baseball player slide that would get him 2-3 extra yards before a defender could even touch him. He no longer does that anymore. In his prime with the Seahawks, he averaged right around 385 rushing yards a year, which is great for a QB. These past 2 years, in which he statistically played the worst football of his career, he's averaged 230 rushing yards a year, which doesn't seem like much of a drop off, but in terms of quarterback rushing yards, that's a significant drop off. And I get why he doesn't want to run that much anymore. I definitely understand he wants to extend his career by not taking unnecessary hits, but and I know his goal is to play until he's 40. He's mentioned that multiple times. He wants to play until he's 40 plus, but in making that decision, he has lost the trait that made him one of the best players in the world. And I have no reason to believe he's going to turn back into that guy unless Sean Payton leans into that, which I have no evidence that he will. He's had the most success in his career with Drew Brees and after him, Jameis Winston for a couple games, neither of which are off the script kind of guys. Payton likes his offense on time and on script. We know that, which is not what Russell naturally does really well. That's not how he made his money. That's not how he became the highest paid player in the NFL. He's always been best when he can escape the pocket, make a defender miss, twirl around 3 times, hurl it down the field for Tyler Lockett, who has had 6 seconds to separate from a defender and find open space. That's what he did really well. That was his superpower. And he's lost that superpower over the years. And I don't think Sean Payton's going to bring it back out of him. This team, I think, is an 8-win team at best and definitely not a playoff team in the loaded NFC. Unless Payton realizes what made Russell great for his 5-6 year run. And if Russell is willing to put a bit of that later career arc that he wants to have in jeopardy by taking those chances with the ball under his arm. I don't see him doing that. So the season, as I mentioned earlier, is just over a week away. And with that comes my favorite time of the year. It's the time where everyone makes their predictions for the upcoming season. Now, usually these predictions turn out to be really far off. Not mine, of course, as I am the most accurate sports analyst this side of the border, specifically football. But there are so many predictions I need to make before the season kicks off with the Lions beating the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. We're going to do a whole 2023 preview show, as I mentioned, before the season starts. But for now, in each show, I wanted to have a segment where I go division by division and let you know how I think it's going to stack up and what the record of each team is going to be. And since we're talking about the Broncos, and I just mentioned how I'm not a big believer in them, why don't we start in the AFC with the AFC West? Now, usually there's going to be 3 divisions per episode. This one, we're only going to have 1 because we already had a segment beforehand. You understand. At the top of the AFC West is obviously the Chiefs. Although they're going to start 0-1, they have had a stranglehold on this division since even before Mahomes got there. Since Mahomes got there, it hasn't even been close. He's never lost on the road in that division. He's lost to the Raiders once in his career, and they were so excited about that. They did a victory lap around Arrowhead Stadium, never forget. He's 7-2 against the Chargers and 11-0 against the Broncos. This is the Chiefs division until further notice. I've got them going 13-4 the season with their only losses being to the Lions, the Bears, I'll get to that in a second, the Eagles, and the Chargers. And I know you're all saying the Bears, what the heck is what the Bears? Well, 2 things. First of all, the Chiefs always have 1 game a year they lose to a team that they have no business losing to. Last year it was the Colts, if you remember, where Mahomes threw maybe the worst interception of his career to lose that game. And the year before that, they lost 27-3 to the Tennessee Titans, led by Ryan Tannehill. So they always have 1. I think this year it's going to be a Bears team. They have no Chris Jones for that game. And I think the Bears might be one of the most underrated teams in the league right now, both by Vegas and by the media. Little sneak peek for the gambling show coming up. Still, 13-4, another great year for the Chiefs. It's Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. We know they're going to be great. In second, though, is another team that I have high hopes and high belief in this season, the Chargers, who I think could be the best team in this division, but I can't pick them just out of respect to the Chiefs. I think Kellen Moore is a godsend for this team. Their new offensive coordinator coming in from the Cowboys. I think this is the year Herbert proves that he's unquestionably a top 5 quarterback in the world. They get Austin Eckler back, and they still have 2 Pro Bowl level receivers, and their defense is loaded with talent. I think the Chargers this year have a better chance to knock off the Chiefs than any other team has in this division for the last half decade. I think the Chargers are going to be awesome this year and one of the most fun teams to watch in the league. They always are fun to watch, even when they sucked. Rookie year with Herbert, they were awesome. Year after that, so much fun. They're always a great watch, but I think this is the year they put it together in the win column. I've got them making a really solid playoff run this year as well. I don't see many losses on this team's schedule, but out of respect to the champs, I'm going to put them at 12-5 with losses to the Chiefs once, Dolphins, Lions, Cowboys, and Broncos. In-division games are tough. Broncos aren't going to be great, but they're going to be good enough to, I think, knock off the Chargers once. And speaking of the Broncos, I've got Denver third in the division. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think Russ is what he is anymore. Besides adding Sean Payton, Denver's roster is eerily similar to the 5-12 Broncos team of last year. Their secondary is still going to be very good, but their offense, I believe, is going to struggle yet again, which is the most important side of the ball in today's NFL. They have well below average weapons, especially with Jerry Jeudy now expected to miss some time. Heartbroken for him. So with Jeudy down, Russell Wilson's now throwing to Courtland Sutton and Marvin Mims as the top 2 guys on his wide receiver depth chart. Both of them are just guys. There's no big playmaker in that offense besides Javonte Williams, who is coming back from season-ending knee surgery. Their O-line is going to be slightly better with their Pro Bowl left tackle coming back, but it's still just going to be an average to below average offensive line in terms of talent, with issues especially on the right side where Russell Wilson does like to escape to, if you remember the previous segment, which is what he should be doing. I think the Broncos go 6-11 with their wins being against the Raiders, Commanders, Packers, Dolphins, Texans, and Patriots. And last but not least, the Raiders. I've got to be honest. I think the Raiders are a bottom 5 team in the league this year because in my eyes, they've got nothing really going for them besides having the best receiver in the world, which is a big plus, don't get me wrong. But I have 4 years of evidence that show Josh McDaniels is not a good NFL head coach. And their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, is, by all facts, below average, injury prone, and limited. So those are your 2 most important elements to a football team right there. On top of that, you have a defense that seems to be bottom 10 every year. Outside of Max Crosby, their pass rush leaves a lot to be desired. And for the life of me, I can't think of a single player in their secondary. Like, not one. Their O-line is at best average. I think it's below average. And Josh Jacobs, their star back, might hold out over contract negotiations. Not much I like about this Raiders team. I think they're going to get a great pick in next year's draft, which is a stacked draft, and hopefully start rebuilding fast because right now they are a long, long way from the Super Bowl. I've got the Raiders going 3-14 with their wins being against the Bears, Steelers, and Broncos, and another year of disappointment in Vegas. As always, please let me know your thoughts. What do you think about my AFC West rankings? Do I have the Chargers too low? Do I have the Broncos too high? What do you think is going on with Russell Wilson and his issues recently? Do you think it's the issue that he can't escape, or is it something else? His pocket passing? Let me know. I'm really interested to hear your guys' thoughts. As always, the Spit Sports Show comes out once every 2 days, every other day. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. It's honestly been a blast so far. And as always,